The chainsaw roared to life at 6 a.m., drowning out my desperate pleas. Victoria Martinez, our HOA president, stood there supervising as contractors prepared to destroy the massive oak tree that had stood on my property for over 2 centuries. What she didn't know was that this tree wasn't just shade and beauty. It was the only thing standing between our entire neighborhood and a geological disaster that would cost millions. This is the story of how one person's obsession with property values nearly destroyed an entire community. My name is David, and that 200-year-old oak tree in my front yard just became the center of the biggest HOA battle our town had ever seen. The violation notice arrived on a Tuesday. Heritage oak tree, immediate removal required. Violation of Community Aesthetic Standards, Section 12.3. Failure to comply within 30 days will result in daily fines of $750. I stared at that paper, my hands shaking. This tree had been planted before Texas was even a state. It had weathered Civil War battles, Dust Bowl droughts, and hurricane-force winds. And now Victoria Martinez wanted it gone because it blocked her view of the community fountain. 3 weeks earlier, Victoria had called an emergency HOA meeting. She strutted to the front of the community center, her designer heels clicking against the tile floor. "Property values are our #1 priority," she announced, clicking through a PowerPoint presentation. "This outdated landscaping is costing every homeowner in Riverside Heights thousands of dollars." She pointed to a photo of my oak tree. "This monstrosity blocks sightlines, drops debris, and creates an unprofessional appearance. Modern buyers want clean, manageable landscapes." I stood up, my voice cracking with emotion. That tree is a living piece of history. It was here before any of these houses existed. Victoria's smile was ice-cold. "Sentiment doesn't pay mortgages, David. We're not running a nature preserve." But there was something else. Something Victoria hadn't shared with the community. My neighbor Jake, who worked for the county planning office, had slipped me documents showing Victoria's real plan. The oak tree removal was just phase 1. She'd partnered with Meridian Development to rezone our area for high-density housing. That tree's massive root system was preventing them from building a 40-unit apartment complex right in the heart of our suburban neighborhood. I wasn't fighting alone. Mrs. Chen, whose grandmother had carved her initials in that oak bark 70 years ago, stood with me. The Johnsons, whose wedding photos featured the tree in bloom, joined the resistance. Even Marcus Webb, the Marine veteran who rarely spoke at meetings, stepped forward. "I've seen what happens when you destroy natural landmarks," Marcus said quietly. "In Afghanistan, we learned that some things have been standing for centuries for a reason." Victoria's face reddened. "This is about property values and community standards, not war stories." That's when Dr. Sarah Kim, our neighborhood's environmental scientist, raised her hand. "Actually, Victoria, I'd like to speak about the geological survey." "What geological survey?" I asked. Dr. Kim pulled out her tablet. "I took the liberty of researching the land history. This oak tree sits on what geologists call a slope stability indicator. Its root system has been preventing soil erosion for generations." She showed us underground imaging. "Remove this tree, and you destabilize the hillside. The entire southeastern section of our neighborhood could experience landslides during heavy rains." Victoria laughed dismissively. "We've had engineers review the site. There's no danger." "Which engineers?" Dr. Kim pressed. That's confidential information," Victoria stammered. "The contractors arrived before sunrise. I heard the rumble of trucks and ran outside in my pajamas, my coffee mug still steaming in the morning air." "Stop!" I shouted. "This is private property." The crew chief, a weathered man named Rodriguez, looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we have authorization from the HOA board. Court order says we proceed." Victoria emerged from a black SUV, dressed like she was attending a business meeting instead of supervising tree destruction. "David, don't make this harder than it needs to be. The decision's been made." But something beautiful happened. As the chainsaw started, neighbors began appearing. First Mrs. Chen with her walker, then the Johnsons with their twin toddlers. Marcus Webb stood silent but imposing next to my property line. "Turn off that saw," Mrs. Chen called out, her voice carrying surprising authority for someone barely 5 feet tall. More neighbors arrived. The Patels from the corner house. The Rodriguez family with their 3 teenagers. Even quiet Mr. Kim from the end of the street. Victoria's confidence wavered as she realized half the neighborhood was watching. "This is a legal proceeding. Everyone needs to disperse." "Actually," came a voice from behind the crowd, "this is a public safety issue now." Fire Chief Tom Bradley walked through the crowd, his uniform pressed and official. "Ma'am, I need you to stop all tree removal immediately." Chief Bradley held up a thick folder. "Yesterday evening, we received this report from the State Geological Survey. Dr. Kim's preliminary findings triggered an emergency assessment." Victoria's face went white. That can't be right. The root system of this oak tree has been preventing slope failure for decades," Chief Bradley continued. "Remove it, and we're looking at potential catastrophic landslides affecting 12 homes directly and compromising the structural integrity of our main drainage system." Dr. Kim stepped forward with her laptop. "The modeling shows that during the next major storm, and we get them every 2 years, we could see landslides affecting the Martinez, Johnson, Patel, and Webb properties directly. The debris flow would likely dam our creek, causing flooding throughout the southeastern quadrant." I felt vindicated but also terrified. How much damage are we talking about? Conservative estimate? 8 to 12 million in property damage. Worst case scenario, we evacuate 30 families and rebuild half the neighborhood. Victoria found her voice, but it was shaking. "The engineers I hired said there was no geological risk." Chief Bradley flipped through his documents. "Ma'am, the only engineering report we found was signed by someone whose license was revoked 3 years ago for falsifying environmental assessments." The crowd gasped. Even Victoria's usual supporters looked shocked. Over the next week, the truth unraveled like a poorly knitted sweater. Dr. Kim, now acting as an unofficial community investigator, discovered that Victoria's engineering report had been purchased from a company that existed only on paper. Marcus Webb, using his military investigation skills, traced the financial connections. "She's been taking kickbacks from Meridian Development for 2 years, he announced at the emergency community meeting. "Every property improvement she's pushed has somehow benefited their development plans." The evidence was overwhelming. Victoria had received monthly payments disguised as consulting fees. The tree removal was just the latest in a series of decisions designed to destabilize property values, making it easier for Meridian to buy out frustrated homeowners at below-market prices. Mrs. Chen stood up slowly, using her walker for support. "My husband died in that house 30 years ago. I carved both our names in that tree's bark. You're not just stealing our property values, you're stealing our memories." The room erupted in angry voices. People realized that Victoria's property improvements, the fountain that blocked our view, the restrictive parking rules, the invasive landscaping requirements, had all been designed to make our neighborhood less desirable to current residents. What happened next restored my faith in neighborhood democracy. Mrs. Chen organized the seniors. Marcus coordinated the military families. Dr. Kim handled all the environmental documentation. The Johnson twins, home from college, created social media campaigns that reached beyond our community. We discovered Victoria had pulled the same scheme in 2 previous neighborhoods. Both times, she'd manipulated HOA boards, created artificial property problems, and then profited when development companies bought distressed properties. The legal battle was swift but thorough. With clear evidence of fraud and environmental endangerment, the district attorney filed criminal charges. The HOA board voted unanimously to remove Victoria and void all her recent decisions. But the real victory came 3 months later. Hurricane Rita brought 12 inches of rain in 6 hours. The kind of storm that happens every few years but tests every piece of infrastructure in its path. I stood at my window, watching water cascade down our hillside. The oak tree's massive canopy channeled the rain safely into its root system, which dispersed the water gradually into the deeper soil layers. While other parts of town experienced flooding and property damage, our section of Riverside Heights remained stable. The fire department credited the oak tree's root system with preventing an estimated $40 million in flood and landslide damage. Dr. Kim's research became a case study taught in environmental engineering programs across the state. Sometimes the best technology is the one that's been working for 200 years, she wrote in her published paper. Victoria Martinez received 4 years in federal prison for fraud and environmental crimes. Meridian Development paid fines totaling $6 million and was banned from operating in our county. 6 months later, we held our first Heritage Oak Festival. Local historians shared stories about the tree's history. Environmental groups used our neighborhood as an example of successful community-based conservation. The oak tree, now protected by state environmental heritage status, became the centerpiece of our neighborhood identity. Property values increased by 30%, not because we removed natural features, but because we preserved them. Mrs. Chen, now 89, still visits the tree every morning. She's added new carvings. The birth dates of her great-grandchildren, memorial dates for friends who've passed, and a simple message: some things are worth protecting. Marcus Webb became our new HOA president, running on a platform of transparency and environmental stewardship. His first official act was establishing a Natural Heritage Protection Fund to maintain our oak tree and other environmental assets. The tree that Victoria Martinez tried to destroy for short-term profit now anchors a thriving, sustainable community. Children climb its branches. Couples propose beneath its canopy. Every spring, its blooms remind us that some battles are worth fighting. Dr. Kim often brings visiting scientists to study our accidental conservation success story. She explains how community resistance to misguided development accidentally created a model for environmental stewardship. But the real lesson isn't about trees or HOAs or property values. It's about the difference between leadership and manipulation, between building community wealth and extracting it, between preserving what matters and destroying it for temporary gain. Today, as I write this story, I can hear children playing beneath the oak tree's branches. Their laughter echoes through leaves that have witnessed 2 centuries of Texas history. The tree that one person tried to destroy became the foundation of our community's renewal. Victoria Martinez taught us an important lesson, though not the one she intended. She showed us what happens when short-term thinking collides with long-term wisdom. When profit motives override community values. When we forget that some things have been standing for centuries because they serve purposes we don't immediately understand. The oak tree stands as strong today as it did when Texas was still a republic. Its roots run deep, its canopy provides shelter, and its presence reminds every person who passes that the best communities are built not by destroying what came before, but by understanding why it was worth preserving in the first place. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from tearing down, but from refusing to let others tear down what should never have been threatened in the first place.